What up, witches? Welcome to Nostalgia Goggles of Horror. Trick or treat! I'm Olivia the Archivist, and this time I'm going to be guest starring in this episode so that we can review Bayonetta. So, is Bayonetta, the first one, still worth playing today? Let's find out! The story of this game technically begins hundreds of years ago, with the Umbran Witches and Lumen Sages, magical clans aligned with the demons and angels of Inferno and Paradiso. These clans protected mystic artifacts known as the Eyes of the World. Although Lumen Sages and Umbran Witches were forbidden from contact, a pair of them had a lot of contact, so to speak, and had a child. The witch and sage were cast out, and the child forbidden from learning magic. After fighting for power amongst themselves, humanity turned on both and the clans were destroyed. In the present, Bayonetta awoke in a lake with no memory, only being aware of her power as an Umbran Witch, the supposed last of her kind. Umbran Witches make contracts with demons in exchange for their souls, so she must keep killing angels to feed the demons she's aligned with. After 20 years, her search for answers brings her to a highly religious sect centered on the European island Vidgrid. The closer she gets to her answers, the more strange things begin to happen. She is attacked by bigger and bigger angels. A strange voice keeps calling to her. She rescues a small girl who is convinced Bayonetta is her mother, and she runs into another Umbran Witch named Jeanne, who definitely has more answers than she lets on. There is a lot more to this game than just that, and for those of you who are concerned, there are time travel shenanigans, but in my opinion, this is a pretty tame temporal paradox, although you should take what I say with a grain of salt as I read comics. While this is just the basics of the story, you can also find journals to expand the lore of the game, as well as there being grimoires of info on the angels and demons you come across. With that being said, let's get into more about those angels and demons with the gameplay. So the best way to describe the gameplay of Bayonetta is that it's reaction-based combat. Essentially a perfected Devil May Cry, which makes sense since the creator is the same person for both series. Anyway, the game relies heavily on button masher, rewarding you for using different combos by allowing you to use your demonic powers, also known as Wicked Weaves. These deal more damage. Bayonetta also has her iconic guns on both her hands and her feet, allowing you to deal extra damage as you kick and punch. You can also use shooting in the game just to shoot your enemies from afar, or you can also do this wonky close-up mode, but I never really cared for that, if I'm going to be honest. The game is built essentially on tiny stages of combat centered around a whole level that you explore. As you go through the game, kicking and punching and building your combos, you can either fill up your magic bar to do either torture attacks, which are gruesome ways to finish off your enemies and get little bits of health back, or you can do fuller climax attacks if you're in a boss fight. These unlock a cutscene and a little bit of button mashing to get you some extra points. Over the course of the game, you can pick up halos from the angels that you defeat. These you can spend at Rodin's bar, the Gates of Hell. Rodin is one of Bayonetta's allies who will either sell you items, upgrades for your health, or new moves. You can also, along your journey, find angelic LPs. These are dropped occasionally by enemies, and if you collect a whole one, you can bring it to Rodin to get a new weapon. This means you can customize Bayonetta's moveset, changing up the weapons as you please, and setting them to either her punches or kicks, which also means a new set of combinations for your moves. If you want to save your halos, you can also pick up ingredients to craft. The crafting is very minimal, but you can at least make health and slight items to give you a boost. Along your journey, you may also find a golden bullet in each level. Golden bullets will allow you to play the minigame Angel Attack. It's a carnival-style shooter game where you shoot the angels for points, and then you can spend your points on items, power-up, or just hand over whatever's left over for extra halos. The most notable thing about Bayonetta's combat, which is definitely the highlight that sets her above the others, is Witch Time. Witch Time is if you can dodge perfectly right before you're hit, you can slow down time, allowing you to get a lot of extra damage. This game demands perfection though. While you will still get a good dodge out of it, once you unlock it, go into a different form briefly, if you can do a good dodge, you only will activate Witch Time if you do it at the absolute last second. So it does take a little bit of practice and or skill. With that being said, I feel like the combat is definitely solid. It works really well, it plays really smoothly, and it's a lot of fun. That about covers the gameplay. So, without any further ado, let's move on to presentation. Can I just say that the presentation of Bayonetta is absolutely iconic. This game's design is a vibe all its own, being ornate and gritty and grotesque and just... it's there's so many adjectives here and I can't fit them all in here. This also, to me, is a shining moment because this game comes from one of the ugliest era of games. I'm sorry, but let's face it, the early to like that mid 2000s era of gaming was so drab, so much gray and black and brown, and everything just looked washed out and disgusting, and don't even pretend that it didn't. Especially on games like the Xbox and PlayStation 3, which is where Bayonetta was first on. But this game uses its darker colors to its advantage. Its aesthetic is completely different. Yes, it has its share of its darker colors, but it uses pops of other brighter colors in there. Beautiful reds and purples, and it just sings. This is me getting into my artsy bullshit, but it looks so good. Adding to this whole aesthetic is the soundtrack. The soundtrack to Bayonetta is amazing, being unafraid to mix between going poppy, going jazzy. It has a lot of really fun stuff going on. And it's not afraid to be epic. It really knows how to use its set pieces, really capture the grandeur of a moment, if you get what I mean. Also, if you're a Sega fan, this game is yours because there are so many references. Platinum Games clearly had some love for their publishing friends, so there's a lot of fun stuff. For example, there's a character who very briefly only appears in name, but is named Eggman, which is what claims to be an unintentional joke, but come on, really? You can also hear the theme of the song Outrun, and fans have been quick to point out how similar Halo's look to the rings in Sonic. So there's a lot of fun stuff going on here. I think in general, fun is a great way to describe Bayonetta's presentation, especially if you are a big fan of anything campy, gory, flamboyant. It is a good time all the way around. It's also rather sexy. Anyway, as Chris is very fond of saying, this is all fine and good, not worth anything if you can't get your hands on it. So let's move on to accessibility. So there is no reason for you not to be able to get your hands on Bayonetta. They really, really, really want you to play the first one. You can get this game on many different places. You can get it on the PS3 for roughly $10. You can get it on the Xbox 360 for roughly $9. You can get it on the Switch by itself for, I think, $40 new. You can get it on the Wii U. The Wii U, you can get it anywhere between $15 and $60 bundled with Bayonetta 2. $60 is only if you're getting it, like, sealed. So you could get it for relatively cheap, about $30 with Bayonetta 2. So then you got two great games to play. But that's just my opinion. Anyway, you can also get it with Bayonetta 2 on the Switch, where it was still bundled with it. And that's going to cost you about $60, give or take a bit. You think it might still be in print. They also had it bundled with Vanquish for the PS4. You can get that for about $25, give or take a bit. This game is incredibly accessible. Like I said, they really want you to play the first one. In my opinion, one of the best ways to play this is either get it with Bayonetta 2, so that you can play both, or get it just for the Nintendo Switch, because it looks really nice on Nintendo Switch, and I don't care what anyone else says. I can't speak for the PlayStation and Vanquish bundle, but for the most part, just based on what I've seen, I would get it for the Switch. That's just me, though. With that being said, let's move on to the good. This might be a little biased, but in my opinion, this game is stupid sexy fun. It just is having so much fun with itself. The aesthetic is on point. The gore and hyperviolence is well done. Almost, I would say tasteful, but that's me being weird. The soundtrack is amazing. The characters, especially Bayonetta herself, are extremely likable. And if you do not play this game for any other reason, at least do it for the gameplay. The gameplay is immaculate. Yes, it demands perfection, but the learning curve feels natural, it does well, and it does a lot of fun things. Even the vehicle segments. There are 2 vehicle segments that I can remember off the top of my head. They are inoffensive, which is a lot for a vehicle segment. They're fun. They're silly. It's just a great time. I cannot tell you guys. I'm going to be honest, I'm very biased. I love this game, but I'm getting ahead of myself. There's a lot to be said that is good, especially in regards to the design and everything, but doesn't matter. I'm getting mixed up. Let us move on to the bad. Now, there are a few things I can add to the bad segment, and that is going to be 3 things. Number 1, for some people, the story might be a little intimidating. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but I've heard a lot of people complain that it's convoluted. I don't think so, but I'm gonna put that here just because time travel scares people. Number 2, the pacing is a little off. This game is not very long. You can play it in under 20 hours, and at least on normal you can. So the pacing feels a little wonky. Moves kind of slow in some parts, moves really fast in others. And that's okay, but I will admit, it feels funky, which maybe is why so many people gripe about the story. Because if the pacing is off, the story can feel weird. Number 3, this game can be a bit of a challenge. If you're looking for a game that's gonna be easy, Bayonetta is not. By the end of playing normal mode, you should be ready to take on hard mode. And that's only because, yes, the learning difficulty is tough. You will get penalized for using healing items on your points, so if you're trying to go for a solid platinum run, it's going to be tough, especially because witch time you have to be perfect. To get that sweet, sweet witch time, you have to get right at that last second for a dodge. It can be really tricky. So, if you're not really looking for the challenge, maybe you might not like this game that much. But it does have an easy mode, which is not, it doesn't treat you like a baby, or it doesn't treat you like you can't play the game. It's still gonna give you a little bit of a challenge by the end. So, there is that to think about. With that being said, so all in all, is Bayonetta, the first one, worth your time to play? And I would say absolutely yes. Again, I may be biased, but I love this game. The vibes are immaculate, the gameplay immaculate. There is a reason that this witch has kept on dancing, and it is here. I absolutely love this franchise, if you cannot tell, and I think you should absolutely check it out. While I will admit it might not be perfect, it is the strongest start for a franchise I can imagine. So, that being said, have a happy and safe Halloween, everybody. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys for your regularly scheduled episode of Nostalgia Goggles. Bye!